to describe the energy that we've been underneath for at least the last month or two. It's going to be going through some transition this month, but I want to just get in there and paint a picture for you of what you might have been feeling. So imagine that you're traveling and you are in an airplane. You are flying through the air. There's nothing really to be done while you're flying through the air, although you are in this perpetual motion. You know that you're going from one place to another. You're busy in the mind because you're anticipating what's next. You're thinking about where you've just come from. And you don't really know what is going to happen once you land. You can cross your fingers that it will all go okay. But every time that you sit down to concentrate on something or focus on something, it's really hard. Maybe you don't have Wi-Fi, so you can't do anything on your phone or your computer. Maybe you're trying to watch a movie and it's boring. The plane keeps jumping up and down. People keep walking by you and hitting your arm. So there's all of this movement. And at the same time, there's not much that you can do other than just wait for that particular moment to pass. Now, I also want to say that in this same plane, the back of the plane is cold. The heat's not working. The front of the plane, the heat is working, but it's too hot and there's a clanging sound. So your whole temperature system is a little bit weird and you have no control over that either. Just take a breath into that. Now, imagine the plane lands and very quickly you have to get on a boat. And in the interim between the plane landing and getting on the boat, of course, you're on the ground, you're in the airport, you have to get your luggage, you have to figure out how to take your taxi to get to the boat and whatnot. And now you're on the boat. You're traveling again, you're continuing to move, and you're back in a very similar situation where you're trying to get grounded and settled, but it's hard because you're still in motion, you're still traveling, and you haven't gotten to your final destination yet. All right, so think about that feeling where you finally get to your destination, your hotel, you get your suitcase unpacked, and you're just lying there, and your body still feels like it's in motion because you have been in such motion over the rest of the day that your body hasn't made that transition into settling down. Now, for some of us, that feeling of perpetual motion can be really uncomfortable. So the reason that I'm laying this out is because this is what we've been dealing with over the past few months, and it is about to change. Not 100%, but it is about to change. So I'm going to go into why that is. I'm going to go into how your nervous system might have been responding to all of this perpetual motion without that deep breath of, I've landed. I'm here now. I can begin to calibrate my life to what's here now. And how your nervous system might respond to this upcoming month, because it's a really big month. This is one of those months where astrologers are cocking their heads and saying, what is this month going to bring? And I'm going to explain to you why that is through the rest of this video and talk. I'm Notha Perkins of Astrology. This is the path ahead. This is my weekly astrology forecast. I do this forecast every week. I release it on Sundays or Mondays on YouTube under the playlist of the same name, The Path Ahead. And I release it on my podcast, Star Narratives. So if you're new here, welcome. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you've been here with me for ages, hello again. So glad to be back with you. And by the way, if you like my style and you want to work with me personally, booking a private reading or something I call astro coaching, which is where we meet once a month to go over your astrology. Astrology is always changing. It is such a beautiful tool for diving straight into your psychological nature, your history, your emotions, your blind spots. And I always say, if you don't have an astrologer in your back pocket, how are you even navigating your life? You can find me at electraastrology.com, and let's jump into the charts. So we are going to be looking at the week of August 17th through the 23rd. You don't have to listen to every single word that I say, but I will say things that will relate very specifically to your life. And you will hear them as though I am speaking directly to you. That's the nature of astrology. These planets aren't dictating to us what we do, but they are bringing in very specific and predictable energies that we all become immersed in, and then we act them out in our own unique way. So when I was giving you the analogy of the plane, we have been in air, a lot of air for a while. We have Pluto, Mars, Pallas Athena, Uranus. In this chart, the moon is there, although the moon moves very quickly. But because we have both Pluto and Uranus here, we are under a collective energy of air, which is the mind. And the mind never stops moving. The mind makes it very hard to rest, to just relax into the present moment because we get going. With Pluto in Aquarius, we are looking at other people, trying to figure out what to do with other people. How do we solve this problem that has to do with these other people? Pluto brings us really big themes that have to do with the collective, with our community, that we feel that we have to mentally solve somehow. It's going to take a while to solve them, but that doesn't stop us from being in that air energy, just moving through. Same thing with Uranus. These are logistics about how to improve things, how to make things better for everybody on the planet, including each of us. Now, when I mentioned about the heat in the plane, we're looking at all of this fire in this chart. However, all of the Aries energy, Saturn, Neptune, asteroid Ceres, and asteroid Chiron, are all in retrograde. That means that the heat is not working very well. So, although we have a lot of fire energy in the sky, it's hard to access. And then I gave the example of the heat up front of the airplane being too hot and clanging. And now I'm looking at the sun in Leo along with Mercury in Leo. Now, Mercury has been in retrograde, making it difficult. It's hard to grasp onto the heat, the fire, the action in our lives when planets are in retrograde because it's like trying to hit the gas and being in reverse instead. You don't get anywhere. Or you have an accident and you hit somebody behind you because you thought you were going forward. And the sun has really been the only fire that we've been able to use. Now, when I give the example of being on the boat, we're looking at all of this water. We have Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, we have the North Node in Pisces, and we have these two asteroids, Vesta and Juno, in the water signs. Now, the issue with the water signs is that water also is beyond our control. Think about when you're on a boat and it's going and it's making you sick, or when you get off of a boat and you still feel that movement. You know, the water, which is akin to our emotions, does that. We are emotionally impacted by the things that go on during our day, the things that go on in our mind, etc. And it can be really hard to like get out of it and get grounded. So this idea of getting grounded, of taking a deep breath, of coming back to yourself, of taking the lay of the land and just getting settled with the earth signs, that's where we find our settled energy. And we have had nothing in earth signs for a while, a few months at least. Although we've had this south node, but the issue with the south node in Virgo is that we are supposed to be seeing what isn't working about that particular kind of ground. So I gave the example of being on the plane and you don't have Wi-Fi. Maybe you sit down and you're like, I'm going to do my homework. I can't get onto Wi-Fi on my computer. All right, well, I'm going to enjoy this movie. The movie's boring. My elbow keeps getting hit. So it's like everything that represents us being settled and grounded is not existent right now. And I talk to so many of you, once again, myself included, where we are trying to keep moving forward. We're trying to make the plans. That's an earth thing. We're making plans. We are tending to growing what we wanted in our plan. Nothing is working. Nothing is working out as quickly or as fluidly as we wanted. And so, what does that do? That has put us into this place of saying, all right, it's a travel day. I'm going to have to go with whatever the flow of the travel day is. I'm going to have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to have a lot of emotions. I'm going to have to deal with taking quick, fast actions, rapid actions, and also not being able to move at all. So another analogy would be I'm trying to get to my plane on time and I'm suddenly on an elevator full of people and the elevator isn't moving. Okay. So we're under a lot of this very complex, complicated energy where nobody's really getting what they want. The plans are not really coming to fruition, and yet we're still feeling that frustration of the old. And this is an important concept to bring into just astrology right now, life right now, is that the traditional things that we've always done, the way we've always done them, there's so many breakdowns and cracks in the structure of those things that if we are trying to power through and like, I'm going to make it to my destination on the exact time that I had planned for it to work, because I have a clock and I have a calendar and I have my email from the airline that says that the plane should be taking off at this time. Guess what? It's out of our control. So the more that we can be flexible and fluid and allow things to happen, the better. Now, as we begin to move into this week, let's look at the astrology of this week. If I progress this chart until August 19th, which is Tuesday, we see that the sun is making a trine to Chiron. This is actually a really sweet energy. This is a healing energy where we're acknowledging that, yeah, things aren't moving quite as quickly as we would have wanted. There might be some issues around our own identity. Both the sun in Leo and Chiron in Aries are dealing with identity, who we are, who we take ourselves to be, what our ego wants. And by the way, if you've missed my Leo season talks under Astrology for Awakening, there's a playlist of the same name on YouTube. I'm also releasing them on the podcast. These are great episodes. I went through many facets of Leo, how that energy impacts each of us. We're always working with that because that is in our astrology chart, regardless of whether you have much in Leo, we are always dealing with a sun. We have a sun. Sun is about who we are. And as we learn about who we are and what our soul came here to do on the planet at this time, there's an abundance of information there, but we have to unpack a lot of conditioning. We've got to clean off the dirty windows, so to speak, in order to see out of them. And so as the sun makes this trine to Chiron this week, there might be some healing. You might say, I've been trying to be this version of myself. I've been trying to avoid making a big fuss out of something, and I need to make a big fuss because I have to advocate for myself. A lot of the issue with Chiron and Aries, as we've all been working with this energy since 2018, it's not new, but this is energy where we are looking at how dangerous it is to stand up for ourselves, how dangerous it is to advocate and even have a dissenting opinion from the group, or to stand out and say, this is me, this is who I really am. There's been a lot of issues around identity, especially in the last 7 years, whether it relates to being canceled for something or being propped up. Certain groups get really propped up and idealized, and then other groups get shot down. And it's very complicated. Depending on what side you're on, it's complicated on both sides. So this is the energy of identity. And like, where did I get wounded along the way? In my own identity, where have I felt like I couldn't stand up for myself, like being angry or thinking something outside of the norm was going to get me in trouble? And probably most people have examples of that. Well, there's something this week where the sun is making this trine to Chiron that maybe there's a lifting of the energy. Maybe we're able to take some of the rocks out of the backpack that we've been carrying, where we've been trying to just pretend to be somebody that we weren't, or we've been keeping silent about something that was really irritating us. Or maybe it's just saying, like, I'm no longer that version of me, and I'm not going to act like that version of me now in the present. You might experience something like that or some insight around a dynamic like that in your life. I'm going to progress the chart to the 22nd because what we see here is the sun at 29 degrees of Leo, which means that it is headed into the energy of Virgo. So I will be doing Virgo talks this month on Astrology for Awakening. Virgo is such an interesting archetype because we have been trained to be Virgo to the core in our culture. It's an energy that we all relate to. It's the head down, doing the work, getting the approval, giving, giving, giving energy. And it can bite us sometimes, often. So we're going to talk about that. And it's a particularly rough Virgo season. So we're going to go into that. But I want to show you that as a sun is at 29 degrees, we are finalizing the lessons of that sign. So this Leo stuff around who we take ourselves to be, what our ego wants, how our ego drives us, the part of us that says, I have to be seen, I have to be respected, I have to be the best, I have to be adored, and here's how I expect for everybody to mirror all of those things back to me. Very tricky. Be looking on Friday at the end of the week for some final pieces of that puzzle. And again, this could be letting go of old facets of you. The part of you that used to get really annoyed when people didn't respond to your texts. The part of you that's still trying to prove to that old friend group that you're worthy, they should still love you. The part of you that has kept your mouth shut around your boss because you didn't want to be too big and fancy with your ideas and get shot down. There's a lot of saying goodbye to old pieces of us that just aren't functional anymore. And I want to point out that all through Friday, we are also in a dark moon, meaning that some of our stuff that we're meaning that needs to be processed in this new moon is coming to our awareness. Right early Friday morning, we have a new moon in the sign of Virgo. It's at 0 degrees. 0 degrees is really fresh and potent Virgo energy. It is like the most Virgo of the Virgo. Now, one of the things that's really tricky about this moon, and we did all of this weird astrology all through last month as well, is that this new moon is at the apex of a yod with Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. A yod does bring up anxiety. Virgo is a sign that brings up anxiety because it's that performative part of us that says, as long as I'm a good girl or a good boy, then I'm going to be safe. Or what if I extra excel? What if I go above and beyond? Then not only will I be safe, but I will be praised and I will be approved of. And so when we talk about Virgo, we have to mention the fact that it's that part of us that scurries around. We're looking for approval. We're looking to get it right. We're giving and giving. So that part of you that gives the clothes off of your own back, goes above and beyond to do favors for somebody, or goes without so that somebody can have something. And then we've got to add to the pot that oftentimes Virgo can bring in a ton of resentment. So bending over backwards for somebody, taking the shirt off of your back for somebody, going without so that somebody can have, if those things bring up resentment or bitterness, or you're angry because you're always the one that has to give everything, this is going to be a tough new moon for you. Now, what is going to make it less tough is if you can be very aware of the fact that something is going to change, something needs to change. This is your higher self saying, hey, how long are you going to play this dynamic out? How long are you going to keep being such a pleaser and such a giver if it's making you angry? Because with Virgo, we can give and give and give as long as it feels good, as long as it lights us up. And we're like, oh, I love it when I give my dog a treat because he is so happy. And I don't mind that I had to get up, go to the store, buy the treats, get home, unpack the treats, and hand it to him. It was a labor of love because I love helping my dog feel good. Hey, all about that. That is Virgo at its exalted point. But most of us aren't doing that. Most of us, because we're such a Virgo culture, have been conditioned that you put your head down and you become the indentured servant for your boss, your children, your parents, your inner critic. Okay, let's not even forget the inner critic. By the way, if you are somebody that struggles with an inner critic, go back to the Capricorn videos in the Astrology for Awakening series because I have some great inner critic talks, how to work with it. Now, we know that this new moon is not going to play out the exalted sides of Virgo. We know that because we see how many difficult connections it's making. The outer planets, Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, and we even have Uranus over here making a square to this new moon. Those are the outer planets. Those are the ones that are connected to the collective, to the people around you, but also to God, to your higher self, your higher power. Your soul came in here with a mission. Your soul said, I want to experience certain things. I want to master certain skills. Our humans come in and become completely conditioned by our culture, our religion, our parents, our teachers, our peers. And usually that conditioning tops the desire of the soul. And we have amnesia about the desire of the soul. We forget. until we walk through life and we remember systematically. Your soul is in a process of remembering. That's right. I didn't come in to just be bitter and angry and annoyed and resentful all the time. That is definitely not what I came in as a soul to experience. But in order to free myself from that, I have some work to do. And in the case of this new moon, Pluto says, go deeper. Go look in some of those dark corners of your own psyche. Why do you act that out? Why do you always overperform? Why do you go do things for people that you become resentful about? Why? Where did that start? And in the case of Neptune, looking at the loss of connection with self, which is how we end up acting out we'll call it the shadow side of Virgo. And I will be releasing a shadow side of Virgo episode this month. Neptune requires really a looking into how out of touch with myself am I when I'm just being a workhorse for everybody else and then being resentful and then doing that for years and years and years. Wait a minute. If I'm really listening to myself, I am tuned into the fact that I'm doing stuff that's generating anger and resentment and bitterness in my system. And then I'm acting that out on other people. Oh my God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be giving from a place of annoyance. Nobody wants you to give them the energy of annoyance through the hand of a favor. No. Saturn says, start making changes. You're the only one that can change. Uranus says, start making changes. Start doing it differently. Start revolutionizing the way that you give, the people that you're willing to spend your time and energy on. And then you say, well, how am I supposed to do that? And Saturn says, I'll help you. I'll help you get organized. I'll help you build it into your schedule. Okay, so this is really a big deal because we also will see as we progress through this month that the sun is going to meet with the south node in Virgo. And by the way, we have eclipse season coming. Both of the eclipses in the fall are going to be next to this south node in Virgo and this north node in Pisces. So when I say that astrologers are looking at the month of September going, that's what I mean. The nodes are our path of destiny. The south node says this is what is not working. This is what is not serving. You have got to get all of the junk out of your fridge if your fridge is smelly. How do you make your fridge not smell if you don't go through and take out all of the old condiments and the moldy brick of cheese and the uncovered sausage? That is the south node. Like, we got to get rid of some of this Virgo stuff here. When the sun and the moon go into eclipse season, as one of my astrology teachers, David Palmer, says, the nodes serve to the pleasure of the sun and the moon. The sun, who we are, the moon, how we feel, the nodes. Are you here to evolve in this life, or are you here to stay stuck in your old patterns? Well, we're like, oh, I'm here to evolve, of course. Okay. So, in order to evolve, you must address the fundamentals of who you are and how you feel. So, that's the month that we're headed into, and that begins this week. So, the more that you're awake and aware and paying attention to how this is coming up in your own personal life, it'll show up through your relationships, through your phone calls, through your emails, through whatever is going on in your own nervous system. And Virgo is the sign that belongs in the sixth house, which is the house of the nervous system. We all know that a dysfunctional nervous system is probably in charge of every single problem on the entire planet. Okay. Everybody that is an abuser, a perpetrator, a victim, we can trace back all of that stuff to a dysfunctional nervous system. So while we cannot change the nervous system of everybody on the planet, not right away anyway, we can work on our own. And that's what this month is going to be about. And that's what this new moon is about. It is unhealthy for the nervous system to be giving to the point of anger, resentment, and bitterness. Where does all that go? Well, it goes straight into your chest, your breasts, your digestive system. And then what happens? Oh, well, we start to have aches and pains, things that aren't good in these areas of our body. This is a time to use the earth energy that's coming in through the Virgo sun. And groundedness is many different things. It is literally getting outside onto the ground, out into nature, sitting with your back to a tree, walking near water, allowing the sunlight to hit your skin, looking at the moon. These are ways to ground. Also, drinking water, drinking enough water. You can bless your water. You can take a shower and ask that everything that no longer serves you releases through the water and drains down the drain. You can work with crystals, stones, just holding them in your hand, asking them to help you see what you need to see. You can work with flower remedies. You can work with herbs. You can work with plants. There are many different versions of getting grounded that will help you to not only navigate all of the thoughts and all of the feelings and all of the actions that you want to take, but you can't quite do, but it'll also really help regulate your nervous system in small ways. And of course, if you have nervous system regulators that you use on a regular basis, keep using them. Maybe cut down on things that disrupt the nervous system, like alcohol, caffeine, junk food, doom scrolling, right? There's all of these ways that we can better support ourselves that don't require massive life changes or a ton of money, but just systematic new routines. And that's a Virgo thing as well. Routines, rituals, and habits. It's going to be a fun month. We're in it together. I hope this was helpful. And I will see you all for my transition of Leo into Virgo on my show, Astrology for Awakening. That will be released at the end of the week. Have a good one.